What is up, everybody? Hey, this is Ryan, and welcome to our Reflections podcast. Hey, had a couple thoughts about a sermon I gave last weekend. It was on the scripture when Jesus cries out, my God, why have you forsaken me?" We're doing a series, we just wrapped it up actually, where we explore just a handful of the 300 questions that Jesus asks in the Gospels. So we don't explore every one, just a couple of them. And that was the one that I wanted to kind of end with. We actually didn't end with it, but it's the second to last one. But here's the thing. When Jesus cries out, my God, why have you forsaken me?" There's all kinds of ways to think about what he was doing, what it meant, and lots of commentary on it. But I wanted to give a sermon that kind of how I read the scripture, and that is this, that when Jesus cries out on the cross, my God, why have you forsaken me?" He absolutely meant it. It was like the realest, real cry that he cries on the cross. There are some scholars, for example, that say, well, Jesus is quoting Psalm 22, which he was. And he quotes the first line David writes in Psalm 22, that same line, my God, why have you forsaken me?" But then Psalm 22, it's a lengthy psalm. At the end, it ends on a high note that David kind of ends with this declaration of faith. And so some scholars believe that when Jesus quotes this, that he's quoting the whole psalm, and he's actually saying from the cross, not just my God, why have you forsaken me, but he's saying in this kind of mystical way, or this coded way, it's a declaration of faith. And I'm like, I just don't think that's what's going on there. Otherwise, why wouldn't Jesus have just said that? Like, why wouldn't he have just declared his faith aloud? Instead, he declares this experience of God forsakenness. And in some ways, I wanted to preach a sermon that let the darkness of that moment be dark. Like, I wanted it to be this overwhelmingly emotional, God-forsaken moment that we all felt, because in life, we've all felt that. There's this beautiful, so N.T. Wright, one of my favorite New Testament scholars, says that in his little commentary on that verse, he said, it's so funny, he's like, hey, this passage was just that. It wasn't God sort of leaning down. He actually mentions the footprints in the sand poem, which is a great poem. If you don't know it, you can Google it, but there's this footprints in the sand poem where there's a man walking on the beach and there's two sets of prints. And then he notices, though, that it's like a metaphor for his life. And he notices, though, that during the hardest moments of his life, there's only one set of prints. And so God is like, yeah, that's me and you walking together through your life. And then he goes, well, why in the hardest moments were there only one set of footprints? Why'd you leave me? And then God says, I didn't leave you. It's in those moments that I carried you. And you're like, oh, it's so sweet, Like, there's a silver lining in this story. It's great. And I love the poem. But N.T. Wright, and I would argue as well, says that's not the point of this story. When Jesus cries out, my God, why have you forsaken me?" It's really bad. It's actually that bad. And it's not like God is like, don't worry, Jesus, I'm actually carrying you right now. And in the end, we're going to be okay. No, in that moment, there is this experience of God forsakenness. And I wanted to let that linger because I don't want to just gloss over the dark moments of our lives. There's nothing in the Bible really that says, hey, you know what? Every cloud does have a silver lining. It's going to be okay. Like, this looks bad, but you know what? It's actually a blessing in disguise. No, some things in the Bible are just bad. Some things in life are just bad. And the bad things are bad. And the evil things are evil. And they stay bad and they stay evil. What the Bible does say is that, look, at the end of the things that are actually bad, there's not a silver lining. They're bad. But out of those things, God is able to bring something beautiful out of them. And I like that because I feel like in our own lives, it's the same way. The things that happen to us that are bad, whether it's abuse or violence or just catastrophic rupture in relationships, these things that are bad, they really are bad. And it's not like Jesus will just lean over like, hey, it's okay, chum, you'll be fine. No, this is bad. My God, why have you forsaken me? I don't want to jump over the cross just to get to Sunday, Easter Sunday. Like, the cross that Friday was a horrible, horrific rupture. It was so dark and bad that, like, the sun is blotted out for hours, we're told, on that Friday, that Good Friday. And things were really bad. And Jesus cries out from the cross, my God, why have you forsaken me? And he really meant it. And the things in our life really are that bad. Now, here's what I would say, though. So what I will say is this. The moments in life that are bad, they really are bad. And the moments in life that are evil, they really are. And they kind of stay that way. But I do believe that God is at work taking those things and bringing them towards something that is ultimately in the end good. But it isn't like, hey, just find the bright side of this dark moment. Like, no, maybe the moment really is that dark, and you should lament it and grieve it and cry and shake your fist and yell at the sky or at God and do all the things that David does and Job does and Jonah and Jesus for sure, and like me and like you and many others. Yeah, do that. Echo those same cries. But know that ultimately God is moving this thing and is putting the pieces back together, and there is an Easter Sunday to come. And look, we evangelicals, we love Easter Sunday, but I also want to remind folks that you can't get to Easter Sunday except through Good Friday. And for a brief moment, it looks like all is lost. It really does. And it's painful and horrific, and there's crying and rending of clothes and weeping and lost feeling, and everyone runs and hides for fear of their own lives. It's like a horrific moment. And that is what leads to Resurrection Sunday. So it's in our own lives. I'm not saying embrace the darkness or the bad things. I'm just saying that's part of life. It's not the only part of life. There's also beauty and wonder and goodness, but that's that part of life. And sometimes we want to stuff those things or hide them or neglect them or not accept them, because we want to be winners, to be frank. We don't like being losers. We want to win and be champions. But the way that Jesus wins is going through death. And so why should we be any different? And in this world, we will have trouble. That's the way that it goes. There will be suffering and pain and sorrow, if not for you, for someone you know. That's how life is. It's full of these kinds of things. But in the end, in the very end, yes, there is a resurrection. And Jesus promises to restore and renew and recreate all things. And somehow in the suffering, God is working for our good. But the suffering really is suffering. It really is bad sometimes. And I don't ever want to gloss over that or ignore that or try to cheapen it or just make it seem like it's not that bad. No, it is that bad. And it's okay to acknowledge that. But trust and know that God is at work even in those things. And that's where, what Jürgen Moltmann says, that God is the God hanging there in the gallows. He's the one. He's the crucified God hanging on the cross. That's where he is. He's there in the sorrow, in the suffering. And we can cry out to him. I love that Jonah and Job and Jesus, they cry out to God. It's a cry of faith. Even in their God-forsaken moments, they cry out to God and are seeking God in those moments, because that's where God is found. God is the God on the cross, the crucified God. Some things in life really are bad, and I don't want to ever gloss over them. They are bad. But in the end, Jesus promises to restore all things and renew all things, Revelation 21:22, and to redeem all things and retell all these stories. And if the resurrection is true, which I believe it is, I believe the resurrection is true, then someday down the road, we are going to be okay. All right, love you guys. Peace. Hey, if you enjoy this show, I'd love to have you share it with some friends. And don't forget, you are always welcome to join us in person at Central in Elk River at 8:30, which is our liturgical gathering, or at 10 o'clock, our modern gathering. Or you can check us out online at clcelkriver.org. Peace.